What's up, guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm over here with Anton Morgan. We're at Lightning Quick Powerglides. Fairview, North Carolina. It took me about 4 hours to get here. So he has got a shop up here and he specializes in Powerglide transmissions. So y'all know we had a problem when we were at Galot NPK, broke a transmission, bought a transmission, took two transmissions, made one transmission, and now the other transmission is over here in this pile, all apart. I brought him a box of pieces. How often do you get them brought to you in pieces like that?
A lot of times. Whole totes or beds of trucks,
right.
or 10 boxes.
Just pieces and parts everywhere. Let me show you. He's going to show you around the shop. He's going to be my Powerglide guy. You can see he's got Powerglide parts everywhere. He's got a ton of stuff. He's been building Powerglides for a long time. So this is one of his specialties. He doesn't do turbo 400s. He doesn't do turbo 350s. He doesn't do the overdrive transmissions. It's Powerglide specific. Y'all check this stuff out. So we're talking to Anton. He's showing us this stuff, man. And he just opens drawer after drawer, and there's like stuff everywhere of like Powerglide. It's Powerglide. You're the Powerglide specialist. That's everywhere.
That's all I do.
So he's got tons of input shafts here. And we were just talking about different input shafts. They have some proprietary input shafts that they do. I went back in the day, I went from a dual ring shaft that was a normal shaft, and I would break it. And then I put a single ring in, and then I broke it. And then I put a solid one in, and I just broke it. so I've broken every type of input shaft there is that is normal. But now this is your proprietary one, so it's a little different.
It is. USA made, USA metal, USA heat treat, USA machining. I think that means a lot. In all honesty, the input shaft even feels different than a lot of the others. As funny as that may sound, but a lot to do with the lubrication holes, how they're drilled, where they're the tapers on things. There's a lot of things that kind of make one stronger or make one special.
And how much horsepower is that dual ring one?
1,500.
1,500. Mm-hmm. And he's got people running that at 1,500 horsepower.
Yes.
I broke my first dual ring at like probably 700 horsepower.
Yeah.
That was
there's all kinds of different
right. That's right.
So you have, from the 4340 to the 300M to even NAS shafts. I put NAS shafts in some, which is as people call them, the NASA shaft.
Right. Yeah. And so he's going to build. So when you come talk to him, when you hit him up on Facebook, find him, Lightning Quick Transmissions, Anton Morgan. I'll put a link in his Facebook in the description. But whenever you hit him up, one of the first things he's going to ask is he's going to talk to you about your specific combination. What type of power you're planning to make, what type of everything. It's just like everything else. I mean, you may be able to get in one of these stock case glides over here. You may have to have all aftermarket stuff. Now, that is a very, very beefy looking ringless.
Ringless, yep.
That one is not like the one I broke.
Yep, very strong. Yeah, and it has a lot to do with, they're torsional.
Right.
They do twist.
Right.
They accept that shock.
Right.
And different materials do that better and or worse.
Right.
Or more forgiving for it. So there's a lot of important things about the shaft. Like I said, how it moves fluid. You said about a two-ring shaft and a single ring.
Right.
That affects your converter charge pressure.
Right.
Once again, it can really monkey with your car if you have the wrong shaft. Different companies make this a different diameter here.
So the shaft has got to mix with the front pump.
It has to mix with the front pump.
That's right.
And that gets messed up a lot. I see that a lot.
It'll either be too tight or too loose.
Too tight or too loose.
Most of the time, we've had that experience with too loose.
Yep.
It was just blowing through the converter. It'd be 8,500 RPM, never
lose
shift.
All your converter charge pressure.
Yep.
As it's coming back through, it's just going to the transmission instead of
Right.
where it's supposed to go. Yeah.
Right. So, it's complicated. Power glides are simple, but they're complicated. They're not as easy as they used to be when you're making 500 horsepower. Which power glides come out in what? 6 cylinders, like 180 horsepower or something?
Like millions of vehicles. From during the 60s and early 70s. Yeah, millions of vehicles. But they were all low horsepower.
Right.
We're doing stuff with them that's not the same.
GM engineers were like, "What, you're going to do what with this transmission?"
Exactly.
I don't understand.
Exactly.
Now,
it's not just adding more clutch. Everybody thinks you can just add more clutches, and it's not.
No.
There's a lot of fluid dynamics, a lot of pressure changes, a lot of things we do with it, where fluid goes and how it goes there.
All right.
Yeah.
What kind of power rating in a stock case? When do you tell somebody they need to go from a stock case to an aftermarket case?
Honestly, a stock case properly built will handle about 1,000 horsepower.
Okay, that's about where I was when I split mine. I went the first one I ever split. I ended up splitting two, and it was in it only leaked when I applied the trans brake or put it in reverse. So I split the case somewhere in the back, but it was I went 5.0s, so that's probably what 800, 900 horsepower.
Yes,
and that was bone stock though, so that was nothing prepared, nothing additional. So that's probably about right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you do, and there's reasons why they break different places. Okay,
right.
So you'll see a lot of times if they break at the back around reverse, a lot of times it's a vibration issue, a drive shaft out, a balance, a rear end brakes.
I've done that a lot.
Yep, different things like that will stress the case in different places. A lot of times you can tell. One's built with too much pressure. A lot of times somebody will get a valve body. Think a trans brake valve body it's just a trans brake valve body. Not true. There's low pressure, medium, high. There's all kinds of different, and you can change that or manipulate that. A lot of times they get one, throw it in. They didn't realize it may have been built for an aftermarket case where it could run a lot more pressure for a higher horsepower car. You're fighting that with a low horsepower car because you're having to make that pressure,
right.
Which is not beneficial to you. Plus, you throw it in a stock case, it's going to find the weak links. It tries to apply the band with so much pressure, it'll crack the case across the bell housing.
Oh, gotcha.
Because it's pushing so hard on the front of the case. It was basically trying to separate itself.
And that's what you're going to ask people. Realistically, anytime you talk to a converter guy,
be honest.
An engine guy, or a transmission guy, you got to be honest.
Yeah.
Not hopes and dreams horsepower, but what you're actually going to make. Because it's so easy to make power now.
Yeah, and people change their combinations.
That's
somebody
right.
starts out with a stock 5.3 and doing amazing things with it, but then they realize that they've kind of got as far as they can get with that, and they step up to not to call it a real motor, but a real motor.
Right.
That honestly, maybe makes 500. And a lot of times they'll take the same transmission off that they had before, and they find its weak links.
Right. That's
everything
part of it.
Everything has a limit.
That's right.
A weak link.
You're always going to find the next weak link.
You are. It's part of racing.
It's the next one.
Yep.
Let's go look over here too. One of the common questions I know that I used to have, and I have no idea. The 176 and a 182 Planetary. He's going to show us how to tell the difference without taking the transmission apart. All right, guys. So this is stock Powerglide Planetaries. This is a 176. So you can see it's got a nice machined look to it. This is a 182. So the 182s are trash. I asked him how many do you have. He said he's got about 300 that are scrap metal outside. Yeah. And, that just is what it is. They're junk. They can't handle any power.
Yeah, it's stamped steel, so and it's also very small. The pins on it are very small.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Weak. Yeah, if you look at the pin size on it, they're tiny compared to the others. This is a cast housing. It's way thicker, way more rigid, doesn't flex as much. Larger pins, larger. The needle bearings that are in it, larger. Everything's larger.
And there are times where this 176 are perfectly fine and sufficient for a lot of builds. So you just got to, there again, being honest. But if you pick up a used Powerglide or somebody says, hey, I got a 176, how can you tell the difference in the actual case without pulling it apart?
In most cases, you can look right at the back and you'll see this dimple is smaller. Of course, you don't have another one to compare. It might be hard, but smaller here, larger here. Okay. You see that.
Yep.
Okay. If you have a mic, these will mic like 145.
Okay.
Okay. And on this would be like 170.
Oh, okay. So it is physically larger.
Yes. And people say, well, what about the yoke? Does it not? It had the same yoke on it in these cars.
Interesting.
But this 145, 170.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Also, of course, a lot of people know you can pull the input shaft out, but a lot of times they're stuck or don't want to come out.
Right.
You can pull the input shaft out, and there's a difference in length in the input shaft. But this is easier.
Right.
It's easier, too. You can just see this smaller,
and
larger.
You can kind of see the taper, too. The taper is a real big taper here.
Yes.
and that's a very small taper.
It's more of a flat angle, and a larger angle, and like I said, it's smaller, bigger. 145 if you have calipers.
Interesting.
170.
That is very interesting.
But still in the case.
All right, guys. So Anton here. Now he does not ship transmissions. That's a whole nother ball game. You gotta box them up. You gotta deal with the carriers. So within a 5 or 6 hour radius, if you're close, he has a very quick turnaround time. You can come right up here, drop the transmission off, and then as soon as it's ready, he'll call you up and you come back and pick it up.
Quick turnaround.
We were just talking a little bit about different gear ratios. You stock all of them, except for the 158s.
Yeah, 158s I do just a custom order on, but everything else I keep in stock. Most people, the 180s it fits most people. The average guy out there with your LS turbo car, 800 to 1200 horsepower, a lot of the just what I'll call the average stuff, a 180 transmission is perfect. Usually a 180 can be ran up to about 1500 horsepower pretty successfully.
Right.
After about 1500, usually you go to 169, and about 2000 you go to a 158. That's the kind of flat numbers. Depends on the car, depends on the setup, depends on the rear gear ratio. Depends on things, cubic inch of the motor, how much torque the motor's got. Because a gear is a torque multiplier.
Right.
By definition, that's what the gear does.
Right.
So depends on what kind of racing you're doing, what your car and your weight and everything. It's how much gear ratio you need to be efficient. And
I just went to a 169 last time. I broke the 180s and I rebuilt my 180 Planetary, and they felt a little sloppy, and so that's the reason I went to 169. And I hadn't put it on like radials, but the 180s have been faster. I've been 452 with a 180 straight cut. Yep. So, you can go fast with 180s.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got guys absolutely flying with 180s. I've had some people switch from a 180 to a 169 because of the hearsay, and a lot of people, and they've actually had me switch them back to a 180. They
right.
The 169 come back to 180 because it's 60 foot better.
Right.
It's got more start line ratio.
Right.
On the track, you're all 1-to-1.
Right, that's right.
But start line ratio is what we're talking about, and what it does with the converter, how happy the converter is, and it coordinates. It's holding hands with your rear gear. It's all the gear, and like I said, it's all a torque multiplier.
And and it's a whole one. We were talking a little bit off camera earlier, and it's about efficiency. Yes. That's what you had a good point bringing that up. It's about how the engine, the power comes through the engine, comes through the torque converter, the transmission, and then to the rear end.
Yep.
And that's ultimately going to the rear tire. Of course, that's where the power comes from. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's how you go fast. But it's all a system. And so your part is making sure the transmissions are doing what they need to do, working with the converter. Now, you're not a converter guy. You don't build converters. But you have relationships with all the converter companies because different converters need different things.
Absolutely.
Some converters need a lot more fluid coming in. Some need more fluid ability to get out.
Yep.
So it just completely depends on your converter. So that's part of the process on getting a custom built transmission, is having all the details worked out, who you're going to be using.
Yes. Yeah. To get to that ultimate fast goal, a lot of things will go point A to point B.
Right.
But to make it really efficient, and as you gain efficiency, you gain ET, mile per hour, speed. Things are happening better as it goes through that couple and back through the transmission. So,
right.
Yeah, finding that happy spot.
All right, guys. Well, we are done for the day. Anton, I appreciate it. Y'all go check him out. Facebook, Lightning Quick Transmissions. He's going to hook us up. It's going to have all of his little tricks in it that he does. It's going to go in the car. The one in the car is going to come out. We're going to take it up here so he can do all those tricks to it too, and just get everything right. So we'll have 2 transmissions, the spare one and the one that we run all the time from Anton.
So glad to be on board.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Y'all go check him out. Anton Morgan, Lightning Quick Transmissions. Thanks, guys.